Them young boys in the secondary are a huge reason why the Texans defense has been a no-fly zone. Today we talk about rookies Kamari Lassiter and Calen Bullock.
AFC South champs, John.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Battle Red Nation, good to be back. I'm Texans credential media member and Texans football analyst John Hickman, alongside the man with the big smile and the even bigger hat and even bigger smile, Brian Big Sarge Barefield. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day and being a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today, what are we talking about, Big Sarge? Well, we got to highlight the rookie Blake Fisher. Is he the future at right tackle for the Houston Texans? All things considered, I thought he played well. We got to dive into the AFC at the top. The Texans clinch the AFC South back-to-back years. That's a big thing to put on DeMeco Ryans' resume. We got to talk about that. That's very interesting, all things considered. But we highlight the rookies today in that secondary, Calen Bullock and Kamari Lassiter, being a part of why the Houston Texans defense, no-fly zone, one of the top turnover teams in the NFL. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Big Sarge,
What's up?
When we highlight these two young men, right, these two young rookies who have really contributed to the Houston Texans defense, let's look at the catch rate allowed this year for Kamari Lassiter. 45.6%, 3 TDs allowed, 3 interceptions. Calen Bullock, 45.8%, 2 TDs allowed compared to 5 picks. These two young men have been a big reason why the defense for the Houston Texans were able to force Josh Allen, who right now is probably the MVP candidate lead in the NFL right now.
Yeah.
They were able to help force him into 9 of 30 in the game. They were able to limit the explosive Detroit Lions offense and force Jared Goff into 5 interceptions. They were able to cool off a hot Miami team and force Tua and that offense into 4 turnovers, 3 interceptions. And they were able to pick off Jordan Love twice to keep the game close, as they were able to do so against the Green Bay Packers. Those two young men, when you look around the league, you get the big star names. And Derek Stingley is now in that mix in terms of the names that will be named. But we cannot skip over the job Kamari Lassiter and Calen Bullock has done for the Houston Texans secondary.
John, before we even get started with that, I got to tip my hat to Texans head coach DeMeco Ryans and general manager Nick Caserio. John, they really haven't missed since they've been together as far as the draft is concerned. Last season, they were able to draft quarterback C.J. Stroud, defensive end Will Anderson Jr., wide receiver Tank Dell. This year, they drafted Kamari Lassiter. They got Calen Bullock. I mean, they haven't missed. And Blake Fisher, who we're going to talk about a little bit later on. But, John, they haven't missed. And so getting those two guys together, and I'm not talking about Lassiter and Bullock. I'm talking about Ryans and Caserio, getting those two football minds in the same room together to be able to evaluate the type of talent that they have and that they've been able to put on the field has benefited this team greatly. And we've seen it in the results in winning the AFC South title in consecutive years, which we'll also talk about in just a second. But, John, I have the honor and the pleasure of covering the Houston Rockets as well. And there are 2 players on that Houston Rockets team that they call the Terror Twins, and Amen Thompson and Tari Eason. And they're like, they're inseparable. They laugh, they joke all the time. They're like 2 peas in a pod for real. When you look at Kamari Lassiter and when you look at Calen Bullock, I look at them the same way. And although I can't give them the Terror Twins, John, when I go, you know what that means?
Yin yang.
Hey, they the yin and the yang. And the reason why I say they're the yin and the yang is because for as mild-mannered as Calen Bullock is, as laid back as Calen Bullock is, Kamari Lassiter is the total opposite. This young man, he wears black forces because he wants to. He chooses violence on an everyday basis, John. But that type of mindset, they have the same type of mindset when they're on the field together. And when you look at what Kamari Lassiter has been able to do this season, that is a direct reflection of Derek Stingley Jr. And I know he's so young, but him having that type of influence on Kamari by just the way that he plays, but also off the field, they talk a lot as well. And Kamari is so competitive that when he sees Derek do something, he wants to do it too. He also takes on the challenge because he knows that teams are coming in game planning. Well, unfortunately, the Miami Dolphins didn't. I guess that they just had to see if it was real. I guess they had the FAFO, John. I guess they chose that model coming in, trying to test and see what Derek Stingley could do. John, you remember on the first play, and I know we're not here to talk about Derek Stingley, but I'm going somewhere. Just stick with me. On the first play of the game, John, they swung the ball out. They threw the ball to Devon A-Chain. I'm talking about the Miami Dolphins threw the ball to Devon A-Chain in coming out of the backfield. And the only person that was there to make the tackle was Derek Stingley Jr. If he doesn't make that tackle, that's an explosive play and pretty much sets the tone of the game. But Derek Stingley set the tone of the game by making that open field tackle. John, that set the tone for the rest of the defense because on the opposite side, Kamari Lassiter seen that and he wanted to, okay, I want some of that action. I want some of that smoke. And we've seen how he played, how he's able to start being that person that the teams are trying to pick on, but because of the way that he's playing so good as a rookie, like, listen, we call them rookies. Like the same way we call CJ and Will Anderson rookies was only because of their NFL experience, but they came in like 3-year vets. And so Kamari Lassiter being able to be a direct reflection of Derek Stingley, which is also bleeds over into that leads over into the way that Calen Bullock is playing because of them being so close together, them being so competitive, them knowing each other. John, it's really crazy because this is the first time they've really played together, and Kamari and Calen are on the same page, and that's a good thing to be, especially when you're playing that free safety position. And so the one thing that I love about Calen Bullock, and let me take a shot at Cody Davis right here. You know I love you, Cody, but I told you from training camp that Calen Bullock was going to start for the Houston Texans. It may take a couple of games, but he's going to start. And the way that he's going to learn on the job is because they have a very, very potent front seven, which allows a rookie to be able to develop on the back end. And that's exactly what Calen Bullock has done, being aggressive, John, being a ball hawk, being athletic. That is exactly what the Houston Texans needed.
Absolutely. And DeMeco Ryan said something early in the year after the draft. He said, listen, we're not waiting. Yeah. We're not waiting. And those two young men, I think, have responded well to that. You ain't got to wait on us. We were coming in. We're going to find a way to fit this team. We're going to find a way to make it work. And we're going to find a way to be impactful on this team. And so you talk about setting the tone. DeMeco Ryan set the tone early. They had to wait on C.J. Stroud. They had to wait on Will Anderson. They were forced to. It was no other choice. We're not going to roll out Davis Mills at quarterback, but they kind of had to wait on those guys last year. This was a different team coming into the offseason, coming into the year, signing Danielle Hunter, Joe Mixon, and the free agency class that they had. So they did not necessarily have to wait on those guys. They just kind of forced their hand. And we see them making plays week in and week out. And I think for me, Calen Bullock has been a little bit more impressive to me before we move on because of how much he's cleaned up some things in his game that we critiqued him on early in the year. Things like bad angles, biting on double moves, and just being disciplined overall in the secondary. In the last 288 snaps since Dallas, 8 targets, 2 catches, 1 missed tackle. That's Calen Bullock. And then you look at Kamari Lassiter, and when you think of Kamari, he's getting targeted.
Yeah.
He is getting targeted. He's been targeted 55 times this year. Teams, quarterbacks are trying to attack him, and he makes plays. Those two young men, and give kudos to the coaching staff, and shout out to Dino Vasso, a guy who I think should be receiving calls for bigger roles soon around the league. But those two young men, again, have been a big reason why when you look around the league and see some of the top teams in the NFL, some of the top offenses in the NFL, the Houston Texans have been able to cool those teams off.
And real quickly, John, Calen Bullock has 5 interceptions on the season, tied with Jalen Petrie right now for the most interceptions as a rookie so far in the last 3 years, but the record is 7, and I'm pretty sure he's going to break that with 3 games left. And got to give a special shout out to safeties coach Steven Adegoji, who's also helping him develop.
He got a shot. Now we got to talk about the AFC at the top. The Texans for back-to-back seasons win the AFC South. Let's talk about what that means for this franchise moving forward and how that can give them some pride heading into the playoffs. Locked On Texan fans, if you have not got an opportunity to get your Christmas Day tickets, Texans take on the Baltimore Ravens. Beyonce will be performing at that game. Something you don't want to miss. If you have not got that opportunity to buy your tickets, check out GameTime.com right now. Go to GameTime right now or download the app to find tickets for the Houston Texans, Houston Rockets, comedy events, concerts, anything that's popping in the area around you that sells tickets. Game Time has you covered. Also, Game Time is focused on togetherness this holiday season. That means when you bring people together at live events, the experience is that much better. And it's a perfect gift. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out all of the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Go to Game Time right now, download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. You don't want to miss out on this, and you don't want to miss out on watching the Houston Texans take on the Baltimore Ravens at home. Must-see TV Christmas Day. So one more time, download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. What time is it? It is game time. And also, ladies and gentlemen, to make this NFL season even more exciting, check out FanDuel. FanDuel has everything you need to make Sundays, Mondays, and Saturdays for Christmas even more exciting. They also have the NBA, NHL when they come back, the MLB when they come back, and college, which is popping right now. So get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you will get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
Okay. Welcome back, Battle Red Nation, to the Tuesday edition of the Locked On Texas podcast. John, AFC South champs. John, let me say it again. AFC South champs. Hey, for the people that's in the back, AFC South champs, John, 2 consecutive years. That's, like you said, that's huge to put on the resume of a first-time head coach in DeMeco Ryans to be able to win the division 2 times in a row, but also sets the foundation of the culture for this franchise as a winning culture, and it sets the mood and the tone for those young players. You want them to, only thing that you want them to know is how to win and how to be very disappointed in losses. And so for CJ and Will and Tank and Henry Toa and Xavier Hutchinson, for them to come into the league like this and win back-to-back AFC South titles, for Kamari Lassiter, for Calen Bullock, who we talked about rookie Blake Fisher, for those players to come in here to win an AFC South title right off the bat. John, that means a lot, but maybe you can elaborate a little bit more on what this means to the Houston Texans organization.
Yeah, so for years we saw the Colts take advantage of a bad division. For years. The Houston Texans got to the league. They played their first game in 2002.
Yeah.
Up until 2011, 2012, like the Colts ran that division. They had a couple years for them to win it. The Colts and Andrew Luck were able to bounce back. Then you saw the Jags in the mix. You saw Tennessee around a couple times. But the fact remains, the AFC South for the past 20 years, for the most part, has been a bad division. You got teams picking in the top 5, top 10 regularly. And so for the Houston Texans to win the division back-to-back years, for DeMeco Ryans, he is a part of 6 coaches since 2000 to win their division in their first 2 seasons. He's a part of that group. To me, what that says is, let's have our Colts run. Let's mirror what the Colts were able to do. You go back and look at the Colts in the 2000s, man, they had a loaded offense. Had a good running game. They had a secondary when healthy with Bob Sanders that was able to create stops and get turnovers. They had Peyton Manning. This is a down year for C.J. Stroud. Not saying we won't see a year like this from him again, but compared to his rookie year and also compared to how we believe he'll take this year, process it, and get better, this will be one of those years where he looks back and say, man, I got so much better.
Yeah.
So ultimately, can he be Peyton Manning? That's a lot to put on a young man's shoulders.
Yeah.
Can he be the 2020 version of a Peyton Manning, leading the Houston Texans, a team that thought they were going to get there from their previous franchise quarterback? Absolutely. And so for them to have that for back-to-back seasons, we beat a bad division. Our division is dysfunctional. You got several dysfunctional teams in our division. We only got to get better from here. And also heading into the playoffs, I think this is a perfect pride moment.
Yeah.
Guys, we overcame injury to Joe Mixon. He missed a few games. If Nico Collins doesn't miss that amount of games, we talk about Jettas. We talk about Jamar Chase. Yeah. Nico is right there. I mean, prior to Sunday's matchup, he was averaging 108 yards per game.
Yeah.
So we were able to overcome that. We were able to overcome Will Anderson missing games. Aziz is out. Jalen Peach. The amount of
Stephon Diggs
out for the year. The amount of overcoming a bad offensive line.
Yeah.
The amount of bad play calling.
Yeah.
The amount of overcoming this team has been able to do.
Speaking of the
amount of overcoming this team has been able to do, I think is a testament from how they've been built from the top on down. And that's allowed them to get to the AFC South, to be the AFC South champs. And they should look at that and say, guys, we are our own enemy.
Yeah.
And look what we've been able to do. Let's clean up some things. Let's get better. Let's not only win the AFC South, but let's win a playoff game or two. Let's take it as far as we can because we know we can do it. It's been proven time and time again this year.
Oh, no, preacher. I ain't finna let you stop right now in the middle of the message.
Well, as I look around and I ride. No, but this team, honestly, man.
Yeah.
Like, we critique them a lot, and I'm on a soapbox. I'm gonna give it to you, and I apologize. But
you hitting the points, John. Go ahead, brother.
We've critiqued them a lot, and I missed some time last week, but every step of the way, I just had to apologize for saying I thought that was going to be the straw to break the camel's back defensively. Yeah. And they go out there and force 4 turnovers, and they limit a hot Miami team to 12 points. And they end the game, not on the offensive, go get it on the offensive side with a touchdown to seal the game. They end the game once again with a defensive play. So the AFC South winning that, I mean, you can say that's a great thing, and in a sense it is. But this is a bad division. That's not the real story. The real story is the amount of times they've been able to overcome their own problems to get to a place where now everything else can kind of just fill itself out for this team. Yeah. Win out. You got a winnable game against KC.
Mm-hmm.
You got a winnable game against Tennessee. I think the Baltimore game is one of those games where Lamar is just too good right now. I'm not sure, but I wouldn't be shocked. Once again, if they were able to hold Josh Allen to what they were able to hold him to, Detroit, how they've been able to control top offenses, I wouldn't be surprised if they gave Lamar Jackson hell.
Yeah,
when they take him on Christmas.
Well, let me step in there and preach a little bit. John,
please donate to the building fund.
This is totally different from when Bill O'Brien was winning AFC South championships. Like it has a whole different feel, because when the Texans were winning the AFC South, when it was Bill O'Brien, you kept thinking to yourself, can they do it again? Can they do it again? The question isn't for this Houston Texans team, can they do it again? It's how many times will they do it under DeMeco Ryans, with CJ Stroud, with the amount of talent that they have. Now, if Bobby Slowick is no longer calling the plays next season and DeMeco is able to get in a play caller, a veteran play caller, because I don't think that Bobby is so much bad of a play caller. I just think that the experience and the things that go on, he's not able to make the adjustments just yet. But maybe 5, 6, 7 years down the line, we're looking at Bobby Slowick as one of the best offensive coordinator / head coaches in the league. And so when you look at this Houston Texans franchise, you're looking at, they won it last year. That was the surprise, John. But that also set the precedent of, hey, we're here because the only thing that they did in the next year is get better. They added the most talent that this franchise has ever had on both sides of the ball. And we know that the way that the NFL is, they're going to lose some players down the line. They may not be able to pay all their players. But what DeMeco has set in place is making Houston an attractive place to come play. John, they got in Danielle Hunter. They were able to get Azeez Al-Shaair. They were able to get Joe Mixon. They were able to get Stephon Diggs. John, that is the most top name free agents and traded players that the Houston Texans have been able to get in here in a very long time, who wanted to play for this franchise. Danielle Hunter could have went anywhere he wanted to go. Azeez Al-Shaair could have went anywhere he wanted to go. They wanted to be in Houston. And so when you make this franchise an attractive franchise like that, then you're going to be able to get that talent. Once those players become free agents, they're going to want to come to Houston and play because they know what DeMeco Ryans is building here. And so, John, it's not, like I said, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of how many. And that also goes into if they can stay healthy. Now, John, here's the thing that's going to turn around in this AFC South, because yes, I know it has been a bad division. It has been top heavy for a long time. But when you really, really take a look at what's about to happen in the future for the AFC South, John, the AFC South, outside of Tennessee, unless they can draft a better quarterback, it's about to become the quarterback division. You have CJ Stroud. Anthony Richardson is going to get better. He's going to get better because he has a really good head coach that's going to help him get better. I don't know what the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to do, but I'm pretty sure that whatever they do as far as the head coaching is concerned, if they get rid of Doug Peterson, is bring in somebody who can work with Trevor Lawrence and take him to that next level. So, John, in the next 3 years, we're going to be talking about how strong the AFC South is, and that's due to the fact that they have good quarterback play, kind of like what we've seen with the AFC North. So I look forward to seeing that.
So correct me if I'm wrong. You're saying winning this, how they won it this year and back-to-back years, is really a stepping stone for them to be ahead of the curve of what's to come.
John, I feel like with the Houston Texans, and I know that some people are going to be like, oh, Sarge is just being a homer. John, I feel like next year, winning the AFC South shouldn't be something that should be celebrated. It should be something that they just say, hey, check off the box. AFC South, cool. It's like coming to training camp. That's how they should have the mindset. The next box that should be checked is AFC Championship and Super Bowl. They have the type of talent. They have the coaching in place to be able to take that next step, whereas you shouldn't be celebrating putting another banner in NRG that says AFC South champs. You should put one that says AFC champions.
And will Blake Fisher be the future right tackle for that team to get it done? So we'll talk about that and more on today's show. Texan fans, football fans in general, it's time. It is time. It's that time of the year. The college football playoff is back, and with the newly expanded 12-team format, it's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever, bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you love. TNT Sports coverage of the college football playoffs begin this Saturday, December 21st, starting with the college football playoff kickoff show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern, leading into the first matchup. SMU Mustangs battling the Penn State Nittany Lions at noon. Then you got the Clemson Tigers trying to upset UT, Texas Longhorns, in a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss a moment of the action. Watch the college football playoff presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. Welcome back in, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Now for your second listen, go find the new Locked On NFL, now with 2 shows every day. First, the madman Tyler Rowland kicks off your morning with a double shot of NFL espresso, and then stop by the barbershop with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. Find Locked On now on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Big Sarge, as we close out today's show, Blake Fisher.
Yeah.
I thought fared well Sunday against Miami. He got some snaps in this year at left tackle early in the year. This is his first game starting at right tackle in the regular season. All things considered, him and Chop Robinson had some good matchups going over there. Some good battles going on. Chop Robinson also a rookie, but what I saw from Blake Fisher is a guy that has some good feet. He has good feet. I like his hand placement. I think, and this is across the offensive line for the Texans, aside from Larry Tunsil, I think he can maintain his blocks a little bit better. But again, I think that's an offensive line problem. And then we go back to Chris Strauss and overcoming, all of the ways the Houston Texans have probably shot themselves in the foot. But for a young man to be thrown in the fire, and I do think this is a thrown in the fire moment. He got the bye week, so I'm sure they gave him those snaps. You out there practice. This is a critical stretch for the Houston Texans. They don't win Sunday. We're not talking about AFC South champs in the city. So how he was able to go out there as a rookie, going up against a rookie, seeing some vets as well, I thought Blake Fisher fared well. I've been on record saying I think that maybe he'll be great for the Houston Texans at right guard, a position of need for them. Shaq Mason cannot take snaps in the future for them. So we'll see how that plays out, but he has promise and he's a talented young man.
John, they really, really, really like Blake Fisher. They really, I'm talking about from a coaching standpoint, from a teammate standpoint, they really have a lot of respect for that young man. And that started in training camp. And like I said, Chop Robinson got he was able to win some of the battles on Sunday when they played at NRG Stadium, but him being thrown into that fire of going up against the defensive ends that the Houston Texans have, and him playing against those defensive ends throughout training camp, getting John. I mean, sometimes I just felt bad for the young man during training camp, because I'm saying to myself, I get it, I understand. Like you're going up against John. Let's just take a step back for 1 second. You're talking about 2 defensive ends in Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson that have a combined 22 and a half sacks. Another half sack for Danielle Hunter, he'll have 100. And think about where we talked about with Danielle Hunter earlier on, when he was just getting pressures and wasn't getting sacks. But then, like he told us, the sacks are going to come. And so I preface that to say that this is who Blake Fisher had to go up against. Imagine if Will Anderson did get hurt, he'd have more than 10 and a half sacks. But this is who he has to go up against. Somebody that has, in one snap, he's going up against brute force in Danielle Hunter. And on the second snap, he's going up against brute force and speed in Will Anderson Jr. And so I got a chance to speak with Blake Fisher after the game, and I said, how much did training camp going up against those players help you to be able to do what you did today? And he said, Sarge, I probably wouldn't have been able to handle what I handled today if it wasn't for the people that I went up against in the during training camp. And so, John, stop. I already know what you're about to say. All I'm going to say is
we move.
Exactly. But he wouldn't have been able to handle the adversity and the pressure of going up against a player of Chop Robinson's magnitude and the talent that he has, if he hadn't been involved in some of those, been involved in those matchups during training camp. Now, not to say that Blake Fisher isn't talented, not to say that even without that, he probably wouldn't have been able to hold his own, but there's nothing that Chop Robinson is doing that he hasn't seen. As a matter of fact, Chop Robinson was probably a step down from what he has to go up against in practice. And so he's just one of those guys, John, that this franchise and this organization loves, and that he is the future of that offensive line.
Absolutely. And let me be fair to the young man. I shouldn't be rushing to move him to guard. I guess my statements came when I saw in training camp, hey, you know what? Shaq Mason ain't looking the best right now.
Yeah.
He ain't looking the greatest. And we know Titus did not want to move from right tackle, but he's been a team player. He's always been a team player. I wonder what his future looks like with the Houston Texans. He could very well be, in terms of Blake Fisher, he could very well be the next star right tackle for this team, which they need. And credit to Blake Fisher. You talk about training camp a lot, which is great. He's from Indiana.
Yeah.
Played at Notre Dame. Mm-hmm. Two places that gets really cold.
Yes.
And so training camp in Houston, I always wonder how they sell players on coming to Houston. You know, you got the money. In Houston, the city is lovely. You fall in love with it. But July, August?
Yeah.
And as a rookie, they get started in what, May, June? It gets hot. And so credit to Blake Fisher for really just fighting adversity, fighting with adversity, and fighting against two dogs on the opposite side of the ball.
Joe, you know what's so funny now? With you saying that made me recall. I asked him a question during training camp when he was doing his press conference. And I said, hey, man, how have you been able to get acclimated to being around the city of Houston? Have you found some, because people love to come to Houston and they love to visit different types of restaurants. The city of Houston has a lot of diverse restaurants. And I was like, hey, man, you found any good spots to eat? And he said, I ain't worried about nothing but playing on Sundays at NRG. I said,
there you go.
Hey, in the words of Larry Tunsil, dog.
Thank you guys for watching today's episode of the Locked On Texans podcast. Y'all don't know how great it feels to be back with y'all. Sarge, thank you for holding it down. Please be sure to subscribe to the Locked On Texans podcast on YouTube at Locked On Texans, and give me a follow on Twitter at John_Hickman12.
And make sure you follow me on the app formerly known as Twitter at Big Star Sports with the Z at the end. John, I hope on Christmas Day, Beyonce sings Jolene, Jolene.
For those of you that are listening, Big Sarge has a Dolly Parton shirt on. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, peace.